Here we are again with another Patreon upload. So this is one of the very first Patreon exclusive pieces of content. This is a film rescue for the film Splice, which it is an interesting movie. I don't know if it's necessarily good, but it's interesting. Yeah, this is the very early days of film rescue. I wasn't even involved at this point. This episode is just Seth and Devin. They're just talking about Splice. It's not as active or as fun as some of the others. There's not a ton of like jokes or quips or laughs. It's mainly just like analyzing the movie, figuring out what's wrong, fixing it and such. It's kind of a short episode. It's only about 70 minutes. It's pretty easy breezy. Not the best thing in terms of audio quality. Sometimes Devin sounds like he's off in another room. This is still the early days of film rescue where they were trying to figure out how to get the audio quality just right. It sounds pretty good overall. But yeah, those early days of film rescue, a lot of that stuff, sometimes the audio would come and go. A lot of it, when I first started out, my first episode was Star Trek 2009. And it was just me and Seth in his basement just talking into a microphone. That was it. That was all it was. It was very basic, very straightforward. And sometimes the audio quality in some episodes comes and goes. And, that's just how it was. We were figuring it out. We were finding our way. So, yeah, this is a Patreon-only episode of the film Splice. Enjoy.
I'm listening to this on the free streaming sites. You paid for this one, so we have to make it worth it. And boy, did we get our money's worth on this one. Because, ooh. This is the Film Rescue Show, now that I press record on the backup recording. But this is a Patreon edition. That means you were too cool for school. You didn't want those free streaming sites. You wanted it direct from the teat of Montressor Media. And speaking of teats, we've got a great movie for you today. We just watched Devin. Oh, Devin's in the studio.
I am in the studio at the moment.
How many episodes did we go with you not here?
I don't even know. We've done a lot.
I think we at least doubled the library by the time you were gone.
Probably.
Yeah, Devin, back in the studio, and we watched Splice, a 2009 Canadian-French science fiction horror film by Vincenzo Natali.
Yeah.
Now, a little background. He directed one of my favorite sci-fi horrors growing up, Cube, only because I wasn't actually really allowed to watch it, and I watched it at a friend's house and then never told anybody.
It's amazing how that adds points to a movie when you're a kid.
It does. It just heightens the entire experience. Cube doesn't really hold up in retrospect. As an idea, it might, honestly. Like, what if you were stuck inside of a Rubik's Cube where every square was either a safe room or a booby trap room? Like, it's a pretty straightforward. This, however, has nothing to do with Rubik's Cubes or things I saw as a kid, because there's no way I would have been able to watch this as a kid. Wow. Like, man, you've seen this movie before in many incarnations, right?
Yeah.
But you've never seen this movie go every single place that you can go by the end.
Yeah. It really, like, it had no clear direction. Like, it feels like it was unnecessary.
Yeah.
Which means that there was no, like, singular point coming across through it.
Right. It wasn't a human story about how, science affects our lives day to day. It wasn't a science story about, like, a specific trajectory of an experiment that you can really follow, because literally the only things that ever like evolved this experiment are when they like intentionally try to end it. Like that bit happens 3 times where it's like, oh, we need to stop this now, and then they don't, and then it evolves.
Yeah. And it wasn't a moral story like they tried to tell you it was going to be at the beginning of this movie either.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. It was weird.
Man, yeah, it was weird, but it's got all the elements of a sci-fi horror that I enjoy.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I wanted to rewatch it, and then after rewatching it, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, all the ingredients are here, but it's kind of like, if you make a batch of cookies and you don't do enough sugar and you put too much salt, and it's like the cookie still comes out at the end, but it does not taste like a cookie.
No.
Okay, so this was your first time watching it,
Yeah.
and we literally just watched it. Like, we pressed record 15 minutes after the movie ended.
Yeah.
So, leaving the experience, what were some of your favorite parts?
Man, this falls in like classic issue of like most of it was just bleh. So like stuff didn't stand out. I think the best part of it for me was when Elsa like somewhere like right before, you know, the finale of the movie just kind of goes full crazy.
Yeah.
And like it's the only time in the movie where anything she does fits.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, most of it's like it's one of those movies like I am literally forgetting it as I get minutes away from it.
Right. Color palette was odd.
Yeah. Color palette was odd.
I mean, very, very much a product of the early aughts, or the later aughts.
Where
that
it was like they wanted to do something, but they were afraid to push things too far.
Inception, Dark Knight, a couple others, they pushed this whole like black, blue, white color aesthetic, which if you're not a good colorist and if you don't have anything colorful to show, turns very gray.
Yeah.
Like Dark Knight, all the fiery red pops because of that palette.
This looked like they were trying to do like high contrast, but then lit everything too well.
Right.
Yeah, it didn't work out. The bloodbath with the experiments at the freaking show was pretty great moment.
But it might as well have been tar.
Yeah.
Like
that's
it was
true.
so
It was so
washed.
dark. Yeah.
That scene could have popped if that blood was
like,
brighter red.
That was like the moment you go full Tarantino.
Yeah.
You know, but
so for a brief synopsis of the film, what happens is there's a pair of lovers / lead scientist on what I assume is a military, from the lab coat he was wearing, military experiment into healing proteins, I guess.
I think based on like certain segments of dialogue, it was supposed to be like a private.
It's like private contractor / military.
Yeah, it was real confusing.
Oh man, I'll get into into it later. But there was an element that I really thought should have been played up way more that was not. So, anyways, this couple have created these two like spliced artificial light forms. Just think,
like 5 or 7 different animals.
Yeah, but they look like living pot roasts.
They look like obese naked mole rats without teeth.
Yeah,
but with like the face of a tardigrade.
They looked like flubber.
Yeah,
but if it was just flesh.
Yeah,
like fleshy flubber. And they're like harvesting genes out of these things, and they're about to get their funding pulled, so they decide to like really push it. And one of the scientists inserts her human DNA into the experiment, and we are left with an accident that turns into a miracle, as she described it. We get this spliced humanoid creature that they call Dren. As Dren grows up, they are discovering, how much human DNA has affected all the other aspects, and it's turning into this like super intelligent, predatory creature.
Yeah.
Then there's a weird twist, and everybody has sex with it.
And then they kill it.
After they find out that it can change gender randomly.
Right. Also, at the end, as like when it had wings and everything, it looks so much like I can't even think what movie it is. There's some movie that had vampires that looked so much like this.
You're thinking of Underworld. It looked like the Underworld vampires. You know what it looked even more like was the evil fairies from some.
Oh,
I don't know. I don't know the movie. I'd have to look into it to figure out what it is. But there was a movie that had like little man-eating evil fairies. It was so Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah,
which he was a producer on this movie, and I stan his stuff usually. He's a pretty amazing director. He's really great with monsters. You get the creature in the water tank shot in this one, which
Not a good creature of the
No,
water tank shot, though.
no,
They're
not a
all
good
like
one.
super murky or hard to see.
Yeah.
Or weird.
But this is definitely like what I would likely think is the production company Dark Castle came to him and was like, "Do you want to do this movie?" And he was like, "Nah. In 10 years, I'm going to win an Oscar for basically the same movie, but way better. So I'll produce and hand this off to somebody else." Because the parallels with this and Shape of Water are
Yeah.
the plot not as much, but definitely plot elements, and you can tell why it's important to in Shape of Water to delve into the characters and good character arcs versus the sci-fi horror elements that they come naturally. So yeah, that's the breakdown. Here's some of the stuff I loved. Dren as a little girl being the mixed practical and CGI effects.
Yeah.
For this time, for this budget, great. Like she looked weird. She looked cute enough that I wouldn't have been frightened of her, but then she was just weird enough that I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Kind of gross, but I like it. I like a little gross. There was a lot of practical effects in this. I actually had forgotten. They go full CGI for the initial little rabbit creature, but they incorporate a lot of like makeup and non-CG or like light CG light effects. I really like that aspect.
Yeah. I mean, because I think if they had done a bunch of CG, if they just gone full CG with this would be almost unwatchable as a movie.
Yeah, for sure. If like the later like full body stuff, that would have been pretty unbearable.
Yeah.
Okay, what are some other stuff I liked? I'm really, really hit or miss with Adrian Brody as far as his performances go.
There's a niche that he works well in, but he gets thrown into a lot of things outside of that don't really fit, because he always looks like he's getting ready to cry.
Yeah.
So you need him in like sad characters.
Yes. That's why he won the Oscar for The Pianist.
Yeah, because like he naturally just looks like he's depressed all the time.
Right.
But in things like this, he just ends up falling in this weird space where it's like I don't quite know what's going on in your head as a character.
Yeah.
Because that was like one of my bigger complaints about this is both of the main characters are just like no idea what they're doing or why they're doing what they're doing at any point.
Yeah, I want to see if we can find like one more redeeming factor before we get into the bad stuff.
Yeah.
Just because I like to be a little positive. I'm also at the same time looking for if I can find the movie. The bit I remember is like somebody sees a little fairy and it bites them.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like the scene is coming up in my head. It's like a children's movie, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure.
It was definitely some kind of if you Google fairy bites, apparently it's a kind of like Etsy food. I won't dwell on it, but
yeah, maybe
definitely
like
Bright. That's what it was.
Oh.
It looked like the fairy from Bright.
Yeah. Freaking man, why do we have to bring that movie back?
We fixed that one on here one time, right?
Yeah, we did, which required me to watch it like way more than I ever want to, which was like twice.
Ugh, the finale of that movie still is just like, what?
Yeah.
Anyways,
movie is a weird.
What else did I like about this movie?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of
not a lot.
Like, yeah, there really wasn't, and it wasn't like
okay. I liked how ambitiously they pursued the whole like when mankind encounters another interesting or sentient-ish species, we just try to have sex with it. That's just I don't know. I don't know if that's an innate human thing, but like I mean, we've been banging Neanderthals and troglodytes and everything we could for history. So I like that they didn't, because the PG-13 version of this movie would like touch on that.
Yeah.
It would dip its toe in. This movie was like, not only is the dude going to have sex with her, but it's going to change genders and then have sex with the lady.
Right.
And like, no movie
Yeah.
would ever in its right mind do that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it was the best decision. I'm saying I respected it.
Yeah. No, I mean, definitely, I don't know. It did come off, like, weird because of how abruptly it happened.
Oh, yeah.
too. And then, like...
Well, okay, and that's where we can get into the downsides, because the guy has sex with the Splice creature, Dren. And that's not something that his established character to that point would do.
Right.
Because
like, at this point, he's well on his way to becoming the father figure for this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at first, he's resisting that. He just wants to kill it. And then at this point, he's, like, full father mode. And then just turns around and sleeps with the thing that
Right.
he's fathering.
Yeah. So
Which happens in, like, one scene, basically.
yeah.
Like, he sees it naked, and he's like, okay, I'm going to stick my dick in it.
Right. This okay. There's a good way to do character parallaxes, I guess,
Yeah.
where two characters start at different points. At the middle point of the movie, they flip, and then by the end, they are basically each other. There's a Jamie Foxx, Tom Cruise movie that does this really well. Collateral Damage is a really great from this around this time too, I think, where Jamie Foxx and Tom Cruise start out as a taxi driver and an assassin, and in the middle of the movie they flip, and Jamie Foxx realizes that he's going to have to like hurt Tom Cruise to get out of the situation. Tom Cruise playing a bad guy, weirdly enough, and Tom Cruise gets humanized by being around Jamie Foxx and like slips up on the job because of his exposure with him. So by the end, we've got flip-flop characters. They try to do that in this movie with our two leads. And the issue is there's no incident that flips them. It's just you hit the middle of the movie and then
There's
they
also
flip.
no pull and tug. Like, part of what makes a flip like that works is you feel like, from a character perspective, they're tied together.
Right.
And they're, like, swinging around an axis, right? But here it's, like, two totally different trajectories that are
Right.
not connected at all.
Yeah.
Despite them being a couple and constantly around each other, it seems like they're operating just completely disconnected from each other.
Right, because like the trajectory that they take is she gets unhinged because which is not set up at all, find out that her mother was crazy.
Right.
So it's something that's
Which we
easy.
find out right before she goes crazy.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Almost in like a, oh yeah, she's about to go crazy. We need to like figure out a way to explain this. So instead of setting it up early with her like ignoring obsessive calls from her mother at the beginning of the movie,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like that's the shorthand version. Instead of that, we just get this line drop of like, wait, you have a farm? Wait, you have a crazy mom?
Yep.
And so the audience is kind of left scrambling to figure out what's happening. And but then by the end, she swings back around. She's not really crazy anymore. She like is trying to just shut down the experiment after she has this weird surgical incident.
Yeah, but it's still in that, like, it's not even like a logical of like, oh, I've recognized the error of my ways and I'm gonna do it. It's just like,
Right.
no, we're just gonna shut it down for no discernible reason except that I don't like what's happening.
Right. And he does not start the movie off unhinged,
No.
which would have been the real parallax there, where
Right.
like he's a little off the rails. This experiment gives him purpose, dials him in, figures out what he's
Yeah.
doing, then he like turns, back around. That's not what happens. He starts out super scientist man,
Yeah.
follow all protocols, do everything right, and then by the end of the movie he's like, I'm going to have sex with this thing. And there's no discernible reason why.
Yep.
And as we're talking about it, I think I'm figuring it out. This movie was probably written with one protagonist, and then they had to split the decisions between two characters,
Oh.
and they didn't correctly divvy up the decisions
Yeah.
based on
So it just like randomly because that's the other thing. They seem to like just switch sides
Right.
randomly
Yeah.
sometimes for no reason either.
yeah.
Yeah.
One of the better bits as far as like character development goes is they have to move the creature, and after moving it they realize that this made it sick, and so they want to put it into an ice bath to like cool it down. And so she's in there and it's not doing well, and our protagonist, Adrian Brody's character, Clive, has this moment of clarity where he's like, you know what? I need to end this now. I've got an opportunity. It's dying already. Let's do this. Drowns the creature. Then they find out that the creature has amphibious lungs and it's fine. And actually he helped it, which is like the second time that he's tried to kill the creature and it evolved. Which, there might be an underlying, evolution through hardship kind of thing there. I don't know.
It
They didn't
wasn't
really
well played.
Yeah, they didn't expand on it. But then she goes, how did you know that was going to help it? And he's got this face of like, I was definitely trying to kill it, and I don't know why you're interpreting it this way. I guess I'm going to run with it. I as a character bit, I love that, because that could have been the beginning of him being humanized to this creature, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like he regretted it.
Yeah, the best version of this is you have a series of attempts of him trying to kill it and it evolving to meet him, and then that process and him watching it grow like that being the thing that flips him.
Yeah.
And makes him realize there's something special here.
Yeah.
And that is then the progression of him becoming the father figure for it.
There was a reveal later in the movie where he figures out that it has her DNA in it.
Yeah.
I think there should have been a double reveal. The thing that should have flipped him to wanting the creature to survive is her lying and saying she put his DNA in it.
Okay.
And that activates his father mentality that has been set up from the beginning. He wants to have kids.
Yeah.
Is something they establish early. She does not. Then she does.
But she's the one.
She's the one that develops the parental feelings for it. Again,
and also the one that prior to that being established used her own DNA to create the thing.
Right. So I think that should be the ultimate reveal. The ultimate reveal should be, actually, I never use your DNA. It's actually my DNA in there. And that's why it's going crazy. There was every element potentially to be set up.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's if early on she's like, oh, it's your DNA, and then that's what flips him, and he goes, you know what? Okay, if this is part of me, I know I can control me. I think I can control this thing.
Yeah.
And that shifts his character. That could have been the parallax moment where it's
Right.
okay. But then her saying that to him could be the thing that sets off her going crazy now, because she gave him all the credit for what this creature is, and she knows it's really her.
Yeah, yeah. But on top of that, there's other elements you could easily incorporate here to fix that. They set up so much and then just did not use any of it properly.
Literally from beginning to end, the scene is set up.
Yeah, everything.
The final shot is this woman pregnant with the Splice creature's baby.
Yeah.
Which is just set up for a sequel that we will never get.
Right.
Unless this is the prequel to Morgan.
I don't know if I know what that is.
Morgan was a movie from 2 years ago that had the girl from The Witch as this government project, super secret DNA test thing. And it has psychic powers, and they send in a woman to look at the experiment. Spoiler alert: you find out the woman was actually a previous experiment, and they're making basically genetically altered Jason Bournes.
Okay.
It was a terrible movie.
Yeah, I vaguely remember the trailer for this.
I thought it was going to be like Hannah, and it ended up being like Splice. It would be not beyond comprehension for me to believe that Splice is the prequel to, or the first movie in the Morgan trilogy that ends with something that I don't want to see.
Yeah.
The worst Netflix version of
It's funny, this is Anya Taylor-Joy before she realized what good movies were.
Yeah.
I feel like
this was right after The Witch, but The Witch, I don't know if anybody recalls, The Witch didn't do well when it first came out.
Right.
It was a very sleeper hit. And it still splits audiences.
Yeah.
Also, I'm proud of myself for not calling Splice split at any point, because that's the word that's in my head. Yeah, she so she did Morgan in the interim, and then the breakout. She had Split, and then The Witch got popular, and then she did Thoroughbreds, and the train. The Anya Taylor-Joy train took off,
Yeah.
And everyone was like, "Oh yeah, she did Morgan." Nobody saw it. We're not going to hold that against her.
We're just gonna forget that ever happened.
That movie has the wildest Paul Giamatti cameo I've ever seen in my life, where he shows up, berates this psionic creature to try to activate her powers, and then gets, like, murked. Just destroy. He was in the movie for a scene.
Dang.
I was like, that's how you decided to use Paul Giamatti. Got it. Weird.
But okay.
Weird flex, but okay. Okay, so Splice.
All right.
Lots of seeds of really cool stuff here.
Let's.
Do you think this suffers from like the same thing at a smaller scale that the new Predator did, where it was like, here's your toolbox, and there's like, they pulled like 6 ideas out of it, and instead of like charting 2 or 3, they try to chart all 6 and then keep dropping them as they go, as they realize that all the ideas don't intertwine.
I feel like there's a little bit of that. I feel like more importantly is they had these story ideas, and then they had themes, and instead of being like, okay, let's use the themes to structure the story, they use the story to try to structure the themes.
Right.
Because all the themes are like really intermittent, and really like there are some amazing themes in here that could be played with.
Huge themes.
Yeah, they
huge
just
themes.
randomly pop in and out at times that make no sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a case of somebody who had a good idea and did not know how to write a script, not handing that script off to somebody who knows how to write a script.
Yeah. What I mean, yeah. So, what are the themes of the movie? There's obviously, like, you know, human origin seems to be part of it.
The morality of like cloning and creating new, like, not just animal species, but like sentient species.
Yeah. The ethics of new tech.
Yeah.
Parental control, and also I think there was an element of like parental roles, parental abuse, and how like the effects of it are touched on lightly. Yeah, because like I think one big change. So I mentioned before the podcast, I have 4 big changes that I think really would fix it. One big change is they should have a kid.
Okay.
And this experiment shouldn't be a sped up process.
Right.
It should be they have a kid, and then they have a creature shortly thereafter, and their kid and the creature are interacting with each other.
That works really well if the kid dies in the middle of the movie.
100%.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're John Wicking.
Yeah.
John Wick's dog. This
like,
kid.
If the kid dies, that explains. Like, that gives you the perfect catalyst for them to both just flip their
That's
switches.
the parallax moment, right? The kid dies halfway through in a, I want to say, non-related to the Dren.
I don't think it should be related, and I think we should see the effects of it on Dren. And then when Dren gets, like, when the mother starts almost accusing Dren, like, you know, when she turns against Dren,
right?
Now you have a child who's hurt, and then being hurt more by the parental figure that they would go to for comfort.
Right.
And it gives you that perfect catalyst for taking something that would otherwise be gentle and converting it into a monster. Yeah, because you have Elsa being kind of hands-off from her own child because she didn't really want it, and really hands-on with the creature. Right. And then vice versa. The dude wanted the kid and is more hands-off with Dren. Yeah. And then when the accident happens and the kid dies, I think the kid dying should be linked to the plot, but shouldn't be like, you know, random bus accident or anything like that. Maybe the kid has a disease and they're doing these experiments to save him, but it doesn't work.
That CD356 is the protein they're using to keep their kid alive.
When it doesn't work, the mom blames the creature because that's what it's connected to, the thing that didn't save her child.
What if she instead blamed him because she suggests pulling that protein out of the Dren, but he's insisting on pulling it out of their Frank and Fred and Ginger. Yeah. Frank and Beans. That's what they look. They just look like food stuff. They look like spam if spam came to life.
Yeah, sentient spam.
Whatever you kill to get spam is what they look like.
You know what they really look like? Those tubes you get as a kid that like roll through themselves and you can't hold on to them.
Oh yeah.
But then like the really ugly, like you ever get the ones that are designed to look like alien creatures?
Right.
So they're like all weird looking.
Lumpy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh, gross. Yeah, so he's insisting on doing it, saving their kid the right way with their public experiment.
Right, because then it can help other kids and they can publish.
Right. Yeah. They have the expose things go wrong, the creatures die. That's what leads to the kid dying.
Right.
And so now
you could also play it up even more if after those things die and they realize they don't have it just to save their kid, they in like a rush they pull the component out of Dren and like put it in their kid, but that instead of because they didn't properly experiment with it, ends up causing the death. Like it accelerates the process.
Oh yeah, I'm imagining like the most frightening child body horror moment as its own cells like
yeah, because now it's got like a different DNA trying to take over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is going to be roundabout. The cinematographer of this movie was Tetsuo Nagata, and his first name Tetsuo is like pretty normal, I think, in Japan. But the like American mindset towards the name Tetsuo links back to this old 1950s movie called Tetsuo the Iron Man.
Okay.
Which is a weird 50s body horror Japanese movie where a dude becomes metal.
Okay.
And like gets a drill dick and like it's a weird movie. But then that movie influenced Akira.
Oh, okay.
Which is, that's the 80s anime where the kid gets exposed to psionic powers and radiation and becomes this like body horror mechanical creature machine. So I like that that's the name of the cinematographer because that's inspiring this like they put Dren's DNA into like a stable human environment and realize that like she's kind of an anomaly and it doesn't actually apply one to one.
And then you get really good elements of like proper scientific process.
Yeah.
And
there's a reason why you have to take your time with all of this.
Yeah.
So second big change that I would make. This should not be happening in America or in Canada. They didn't really say.
It's a Canadian film.
It is. They don't establish the city.
Yeah, they kind of leave it ambiguous. It would probably work well in like France. Where were you thinking?
Europe.
Europe.
Yeah. I was thinking. Honestly, I was thinking like bordering like Russia, getting into.
Yeah, somewhere in Russia could work too.
Honestly, you could do like, excuse me, Eastern Russia, where you get into like that area that's butt up to a bunch of Asian countries that are actually have been testing with this stuff. Like China has had human animal hybrids for years.
Yeah, it's a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's not like a fake news thing. Like they have been playing around with this stuff. Yeah. I thought it was wild that like I know that it happening in America adds to the like the reason for their secrecy.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, we're not allowed to do this here.
Like if you could do it somewhere where it's like it has to be secret, but it's not so like open, I guess.
What's the country that's doing the human head transplant? That's like the only country where you can potentially do that.
Man, I'm trying to remember.
I don't want to opt for the like Germany because Germany, But I feel like it's like if it's not Germany, it's close.
Yeah, let's see.
Or a German doctor. I don't recall, honestly.
In China.
Oh, it's happening in China.
It's happening in China.
Okay, but the doctor doing it is European.
Yeah. Italian. I think.
Italian's not
maybe.
Okay, back in the 60s and 70s, Italians were making like really messed up movies. Cannibal Holocaust came out of that Italian horror renaissance. Setting this in Italy may not be a terrible idea either, because then you can reimagine the color palette of this, which really is like one change that would add 10 points to this in my mind. It's like, oh, I don't feel like I'm freezing in every shot that I'm looking at.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it was very like I think they were trying to go for like clinical, but it doesn't play well.
Right. Well, because that's not even what those kinds of lab rooms look like. They have yellow lights.
Yeah.
That's the big angering thing for me. Like even Venom did it, where like they show hospital situations that have these like blue halogen lights, and it's like, no, hospitals have yellow lights. They're ugly. They hurt your brain.
Yeah. But for good, like they're there for a reason,
right?
Too. But yeah, it ends up being like really weird and gross looking.
Right.
Yeah.
And that change spurs on the third big change for me, which is when we hit the third act, they should be on the run, not like functionally working with their lab,
Yeah.
like sending one person in while the other person's sick and vice versa. The timeline of this movie's messed up because the day that he has sex with Dren is the same day that she called in sick but still went into the office,
Yeah.
which like functionally works, but visually I don't
Exact-
know how long this experience took.
Yeah.
And that's why I think having a human child gives you the ability to plot easily.
Especially because we know Dren is growing at a rapid rate. So
And
the
she
human
could be
child
growing
becomes-
faster, but I
Right.
think it should take place over years, as most of these studies. Some of these
yeah.
studies take 10 years.
Right. It takes a lot of time to figure this stuff out.
Like having her grow at twice the normal rate
Right.
instead of
whatever.
what were they saying, like weeks and days or
Yeah, I think they were saying like she grows days every minute.
days every minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Which is like
the math hurts my brain.
Yeah.
Only because they didn't take the time to go to like the next relatable step of like. So that means over the course of a day, she grows
her
X.
full life cycle is like a week long.
I guess
Under that.
because there's how many minutes in a day? 1,000 some, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Hey Siri, how many minutes are in a day? 1,440 minutes. So that means she's got 3 years in a day.
Right.
So over the course of a week, she's hit okay. So I don't feel as
Okay,
bad
no.
about him banging her now because in my head she was like 15.
Yeah, no, she's definitely like I mean, I guess then at that point that puts her in like her 20s
Yeah.
after a week.
Right.
But that's still like so you've got theoretically
Oh, whoever the actress was portraying her having to do only facial expressions,
yeah.
that she was fantastic.
Um
Super props to her.
the one that did her as the like the final form.
Oh, the guy.
No. The final female form.
Oh
right
yeah,
before,
yeah.
It was Delphine Chenek. She's a French actress. She's actually also portrayed by another actress earlier on.
The little girl, yeah.
I don't know if it was when she was a little girl or what. Her name, the other actress is Abigail Chu, and both those actresses look very similar, which makes sense. But I think it was her as like the teenage version. Like,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
so there's like a
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, wow, they do look
Yeah.
wildly similar. That's crazy. Okay, now that I'm saying it though, actually, Abigail Chu could have easily portrayed the child version as well. If you do
Possibly.
like forced perspective and that kind of stuff, that's totally possible.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but
People forget Del Toro did a bunch of the monster work on Lord of the Rings, and he was also involved in a bunch of the like he was a big part of Lord of the Rings.
yeah.
And there's a lot of like DNA shared. That was a pun. DNA shared with this and Lord of the Rings through Del Toro. Yeah, the character development I think is really the thing that throws us the most. Devin's making faces.
I am because I'm looking through the cast list, and Sarah Polly played Elsa.
Yeah,
Right, she was the main. There's another girl, Stephanie Bard, who's also listed as playing Elsa cast.
maybe.
Was there a second Elsa?
No, I don't think so.
They do not look like similar people. But her mom wasn't named out. Her mom didn't even show up. We
No,
mentioned
not
it,
at
but
all.
Nobody.
Are you on? Where are you?
Just Google. Just bring up Splice cast on Google.
Maybe she was cast early.
Maybe.
Let's jump down to IMDb.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with this movie.
I don't think they knew. She's not listed as an actress on it.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was like a weird. I don't know. Maybe it's a Google thing. Maybe Google's flipping out. But doesn't really matter, I guess.
Photo double. That's it. That's
Oh.
all.
Okay.
Somehow she got into the Google overall
Yeah.
page.
Okay.
And that, folks, is how you figure stuff out. Use IMDb.
Okay. So yeah, that was what, the third one, right?
Yes.
Third change. Oh yeah, Abigail Chu did Child Dren. You're right.
Yeah, that's the last change. The third change. The fourth change is a matter of opinion. I'm not going to say that this is objectively a good story beat. The ending as it is right now is kind of small, ambiguous in that, like, you could do a sequel, but it could potentially be just as small of a movie.
Yeah.
Potentially, you could just do Morgan.
Right.
I really, really, really like the idea of going bananas bonkers off the rail with the end of it, where one of the animals that she's spliced with is like some kind of animal that's able to give birth to a bunch of itself at once, or essentially I want this to end with, like, we didn't just mess our lives up, we didn't just mess the experiment up, we messed a lot up.
Okay, so go bigger.
Go bigger. Yeah, cuz like if the sequel to this movie is either Morgan or Independence Day with giant fairy people,
Yeah.
I'd rather see Independence Day with giant fairy people. Or at least the beginnings of that. I don't know. I think going a little more apocalyptic. I think the darker ending, like, you know, her keeping the baby for money. Dark. Yes,
Yeah.
I agree, and that could still potentially happen. I don't hate that as a
Right.
final
Well,
ending.
because of the way this is set up. There's a opportunity to do a double thing here, because you can still have her be pregnant with the baby, but then if you have the thing basically lay eggs before it changes, like if you present the idea that it got pregnant and laid eggs, and then that was maybe part of the catalyst that caused it to convert.
You know that big tank that she hangs out in?
Yeah.
That thing should have been lined with the little, like, sperm head embryo things.
Yeah. Because then, especially because, like, there's no point where they really go back to look at that stuff. So,
Right.
like, you could go big that way.
Yeah, I guess the final shot of, like, eggs in the tank,
Yeah.
something to set up, like, y'all done messed up, and now you can go, like, maybe a little more Tremors, a little more,
Yeah.
like you could branch off into other stuff. I don't know. Again, this is an opinion piece. I know other people would maybe disagree and want the small ending as it is right now. I don't hate that ending. That's not what I'm saying at all. I just personally feel like they set up this idea of, like, we created a new species. This isn't just an anomaly.
Yeah.
This isn't just like we've basically, like, perfected a thing.
Yeah.
And then it's gonna live on within her, sure, but maybe that one could be, like, more human than Dren.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously that's the thought of, like, you know, it's 50% more human,
Right.
than its predecessor, which is, like, a weird thing to think about too. But
Yeah. It's just I guess I wanted it to feel that ending, the bigger ending, makes it feel like there was a reason for this movie to exist.
yeah.
Because potentially this movie could be the background story for a totally different movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
you could boil the
This has the potential to be similar to the Alien franchises, where you get, like,
yeah.
similar creature but very different stories being told with it. Right?
It's got the spiked tail. It's got the, like, whenever you look up this movie, the other suggested things in it are Species, which is a series of movies that I've thrown around the idea of rescuing on the podcast, just to make you guys watch the Species movies.
We like to torture each other here.
Yeah,
guys.
yeah, we do. Well, okay, at least if you watch Species, you're getting to watch, like, classic 80s sci-fi and a bunch of hot naked chicks. So you're welcome, I guess.
Because that's the reason you watch movies. Not for entertainment.
I was very much not allowed to watch the Species movies for obvious reasons. Even the TV cuts of them that cut a bunch of the nudity out and stuff. Going back and watching them.
Listen. If that's what you want to watch movies for, there's a much better movie to watch because just 90% of it is a naked chick. So, freaking vampire movie. What was it?
Oh, Life Force.
Yeah, Life Force.
That movie was amazing. That movie was amazing because it was as bad in places as it was good in others. How do you go from the tone of what if 2001: A Space Odyssey was a horror movie to what if we just did like a B movie?
Yeah.
Like, how do you merge those tones into that movie so well?
I don't know. That movie was wild.
And get Patrick Stewart
in
the cast. Life Force, oh man, what is the Life Force version of Splice?
Oh jeez.
They come back with the DNA and make like the human alien hybrid. That's essentially what Species is.
I mean, like, the best version at that point is it doesn't, like, you forget the whole, like, interspecies sex plot, and it just kills people and lays eggs in them.
Yeah, I think the sex is 100% part of Life Force and Species.
True.
You can't have those movies without sex. That's kind of the selling point. This movie, you can probably do without the sex.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tangent maybe we don't create.
I'm just trying to avoid saying the line, I'm a fan of people banging the monster in this movie. But then again, I'm a fan of Guillermo del Toro, so I guess I'm a fan of people banging monsters in my movies. Listen, y'all, Shape of Water won the Oscar, so I don't want to hear anything. No complaints from you guys. What do you think? Do you have any pitches? Do you have any ideas? I know this was like my movie idea.
I like these changes. I think the other aspect that's gonna bump this up is let's talk about the actual character development here. Like what actually happens with our two characters.
I don't hate the parallax. The
parallax is
things
fine.
cross
Let's
over. I think
it properly.
I think starting it off with that I mentioned it earlier. An aspect of this movie that I thought was weirdly like. I dropped in, but not really part of it. The guy, the girl, his brother, and a couple other people in the office all have like old punk rock t-shirts on. And I think it was to establish the idea that they were all scientists, but like operated outside of the law in their minds. You know what I mean? Like they're like, we're here for the betterment of humanity. Screw the rules. I think that's what they were like trying to evoke, but it was so like low key.
Yeah, I think the best version, if you really want that, is you got to make the whole thing they're doing like it's semi-accepted. Like the main experiment, right? Is accepted as like, okay, this is okay.
We're fine with the splicing of
animal
spam
DNA.
animals.
Yeah. But if you make that like not like it's not illegal, but like morally gray, and have a lot of like have the company themselves be dealing with a lot of backlash from it.
Yeah.
So that the whole lab is like, yeah, we're on the forefront of things, and like, they feel badass for that, because then you take and it heightens when you have two start doing something that even the lab is like, yeah, that's not okay.
Yeah. I think that's a big reason why I wanted to set it in another country where it could be like, in America, we know this won't fly.
Right.
And I like that Splice didn't fall into the territory of like, there's a greedy businessman that finds out about the thing and then until the last like minute, and then he dies like a minute later. So it was almost like a middle finger to that kind of character.
Yeah.
But I like that. I think if the guy, oh man, what's his name? He was from Stargate. The head of the experiment that was a non-scientist, the business guy. I'm on IMDb. I'm trying to find the cast.
David Hewlett, William Barlow is his character, I think, is the one you're talking about.
Yes.
He looks very different on this
David
picture.
Hewlett.
Yeah.
He had, I think that's a picture from a movie. Like, that's not how he actually looks right now, which is unfortunate. He was in The Shape of Water?
Really?
Yeah, he played Fleming. That's right. He just likes this kind of movie.
Yeah.
He was in Cube too. I forgot about
like,
that.
oh, somebody's banging monsters. I'll be in that movie.
Oh, it was Stargate Atlantis that he was in, not Stargate.
man.
I apologize, Stargate fans.
Yeah.
I'm one of you. I know. I should know. I should know. I think they did cross over at a certain point.
This is the question. How weird do you think it was on set the day of that sex scene? Like, obviously, there's a lot of CG going on there, but like,
Right.
there's also a lot of prosthetics going on.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm sure that actress and the director and the entire crew had to be like fine with the
She's French.
idea.
She was fine with it.
Wow.
Sorry. just history. But yeah. No, it was that would have been a bizarre day.
Yeah, I agree. I'm
But-
sure that was a low crew set,
Yeah.
small crew set. So
Back-
what I was saying was, I think his character should be replaced with like a really punk rock and roll. Like, he should embody this idea of the company that like
Okay.
he's like, you know what, we can't do this in America. Screw America. We're going to Italy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he should be the punk rock dude.
Yeah. Like, instead of just being the businessman, he's the guy who's like, I'm fully behind this thing and
Right.
gonna do whatever it takes to make it happen.
And then I think there should be one more scene before the end where, when he finds out that like that investment meeting didn't go well, he's calling them in. He's like, "Listen, I know you guys have something in the background. I'm not going to ask you what it is. I need you guys to like pull through for me on that, whatever it is."
Okay.
Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I want him to be cool
Right.
throughout the movie, but also become a little nuanced at the end, where he's like, he's not dumb. He's very understanding
Right.
of like why they went to Italy, what they've been able to do. They've been hanging out for years. They've been hiding this creature for years.
Right.
I think him being a little more cool about it would
Having a good scene where like they need a space and they come to him and they're like, we can't tell you what for, and then he gets them a space in Italy for the thing.
yeah,
Would be like, that would be a great moment of like, okay, this dude's behind them,
right.
but just wants to keep his hands clean.
Yeah, behind them and not questioning.
Yeah.
He could die at the end. He could not die. Like that doesn't bother or affect me. I guess depending on who you cast will
Yeah.
determine like, because I could see. Do you remember Rainn Wilson's character in The Meg?
Yeah.
Imagine him, but like punk rock.
Right.
is what I'm thinking. Like a guy that like.
Are you saying Rainn Wilson is in punk rock?
I mean, he did the most punk rock thing the Chinese allowed him to do in that movie.
This is true.
I'm sure. From the interviews I've seen with Rainn Wilson, there's a more punk rock version that he could do.
Oh yeah.
Did you ever see that movie, The Rocker?
Oh, I don't
It
think
was like
so.
2008, 2009.
No.
He plays like a Kiss knockoff rock star guy that gets kicked out of his own band and starts a like high school band, but he's in his like 40s.
Oh, geez. Okay. I know, like, I'm familiar with the movie as far as, like, I've seen it around. I have not watched it.
The movie is like if Dewey Cox Walk Hard is the top of like comedy biopics, you know what I mean? This is the like lowest version tier of that, where like it knows it's making fun of biopics, but it's also indulging itself in this.
Yeah.
I guess if Dewey Cox Walk Hard is a satire, The Rocker's a parody.
Okay.
If Dewey Cox wants to destroy those kinds of movies, The Rocker enjoys those kinds of movies. Anyways, Rainn Wilson is who I'm casting in this role now. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that aspect, pulling into like the punk rock nature of it, makes all of their decisions like 10%
Right.
more forgivable. Where it's
Yeah.
like, oh, well, they're both starting at this point of like, screw the government.
Right.
Now we get a little bit more ambiguity, and that because of that ambiguousness, we're not dialing into the company as our rock center. We're dialing into these characters as our
Right.
center.
Yeah.
We want to latch onto them and their decisions.
Yep.
There was a weird. I know it's weird for me to notice. I think I called one of them out in the movie, but like weird acting choices that.
There's quite a few weird acting choices.
Yeah. Elsa has a line where she's like chastising Dren, like 2/3 into the movie, and the line is like not only bad, but the delivery is equally as bad.
Yeah.
And I was like, That was the take?
Yeah. So Sarah Polley, apparently, according to IMDb, is like praised for her abilities as an actress. At least
I know I've seen her do well
yeah.
before.
And,
I know I've seen her in
like,
other
she's
stuff
very
do well.
facially expressive, and
Yep.
she's good at like non-dialogue delivery and everything. This was not her finest hour.
No.
By a long shot.
No. No, definitely not.
I feel like she's just not the right actress for this character is the problem. Because like I felt like the character itself was not well written, but then like it never felt authentic.
Yeah.
For her, even as it sat.
Well, especially after just watching Hereditary the other night and watching a like good mother sink into insanity.
Yeah.
Toni Collette can do this character in her sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, knowing that there is a performance that you can compare it to of, like, oh, yeah, she should have been, like, really great, talkative, charismatic.
Sarah Polley, I mean, based on, like, just what I'm looking at now, hints at to me as a good actor for subtlety.
Yeah.
Whereas,
she's probably funny, too.
Probably.
I would not doubt to find out that she's kind of like Rachel McAdams and, like,
maybe,
she does funny way better than you would think.
But this character does not need subtlety. This is a character that needs to be overt in everything they do, and that is kind of where the issue falls. So we can blame the casting director for that.
Sure. Casting director or the actual directing notes. You know what I mean? Like sometimes when you're, because I'm sure the naked version of the script is dry.
Oh yeah,
very dry. And if you have a director that's not able to communicate like the subtle things that they need out of their character day to day.
Yeah,
you can't sometimes actors are as good as what they're told to do. They're able to take a line and run.
I mean, that scene itself hints to me as like her hitting the edge of her range of being like, I'm gonna try to push there, but I can't actually get there.
Oh, see, I read it the other way. I saw that scene as like the least she could try.
Really?
And because there's other scenes like the scene where she gets her arm grabbed. When they're first giving birth to the creature, she's
That's
like,
true.
She's not scream queening that. She's emoting a scientist who's like, I need to find out what's happening, but my arm really hurts.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And like,
yeah, there's definitely moments. I don't know. Maybe just
again. I think I think the direction here was just like.
Possibly,
I think the character here was just like
a mess.
Yeah, it was a mess. It's half a character. They're both half a character.
Right.
And instead, you need to flesh them out into being.
And I
full.
think fleshing them out is pretty easy with the change of them being parents.
Right.
Like you can.
Yep.
Easily still have similar arcs. You can have them both be very scientific early on.
Yep.
And then become more emotional. And then as they become more emotional, we see as he becomes more emotional, he becomes like more caring. That's what his way of dealing with excessive emotions.
Right.
And then her, because of her family history, which you set up much earlier.
Right.
Is it becomes more possessive and leading to the point of like hyper controlling and then just like shuts off completely.
Well, and like adding the punk rock aesthetic explains a lot too. Because imagine like having an insane mother, but not knowing she's insane and just wanting to break off away from her. Punk rock's your way out.
Yeah.
And then imagine being punk rock for most of your life, marrying a punk rock scientist guy. You both have the same interests and stuff like that. And then he's like, oh yeah, also I want to do the whole like 9 to 5, have a family thing like that. Obviously she's going to be opposed to having a kid.
Right.
Now all the decisions make more sense. And that, I think, of the most frustrating things in this movie, the whole like, there's one scene where Adrian Brody does the like devil horns when he turns a radio on to hide the squealing of his like demon experiment upstairs. And I was like, oh yeah, this movie could have been really punk rock.
Yeah.
And it was not. It was so clinical.
That's like the elevator pitch version of this is just like make the whole thing more punk rock.
Right.
But yeah. And then giving them real motivation to do all this, because right now it feels just like we can, so we are, which is not good motivation, especially when like there's a moment of should we kill it or let it live. Like as a scientist, when your experiment goes further than it's supposed to and you're not prepared for it, you terminate your experiment. And then you come back to it when you're prepared. You don't just go like, oh, okay, we're just going to roll with it.
Right.
But if you have motivation of like, no, we need this to save the thing we love.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, that makes way more sense.
Especially like with her being punk rock and not wanting the kid and then falling, like having a kid and falling in love with the kid and like doing a complete 180 as a parent, now having her be a driving force in the beginning of the movie, which she is, makes so much more sense.
Yeah. The I almost want to recast Adrian Brody, but I also can't imagine casting anyone else that I could believably think would try to bang a genetic mutation.
I mean, now that you've said that, I can't say anybody without making it sound like they're a terrible person.
Okay, but there are actors out there that like.
Oh man, I should know his name. I have
like-
an idea for a guy who I think would probably fit this perfect.
Nick Cage.
Oh my gosh, that reminds me. I just watched Nick Cage's version of The Wicker Man recently.
Oof.
Cillian Murphy.
Okay, but he's basically Adrian Brody.
Yeah, but like, he's Adrian Brody, but weirdly more intense.
Yeah.
And like I think he does better in these kind of roles. Like Adrian Brody does the pianist, the classic sad, very emotional roles, and then this guy does the like slightly unhinged, slightly like, you know.
Yeah,
I'm
he could
going
definitely
for my
start
own
the
thing.
movie off crazy. I guess I'm having a harder time seeing him like converge into. I guess
maybe as a father figure. It's
yeah,
harder
he's
to
being
see
kind
him
of being
there.
forced into being you know, the sense of reason in the movie. I definitely think recasting our Sarah Polley. Not that I have an issue with her. Maybe she would have done this character way better. You know,
with like proper direction,
Yeah.
and with a proper script of like, hey, here's how your character arc is actually going to look, instead of being like, your character is just going to go all over the place, try to keep up.
right. You know what I think my biggest issue with her is she's like way too conventionally attractive and doesn't look like someone who committed
Yeah,
double doctorates.
I was gonna say like this. Maybe this is a weird way to put it, but she's too like soft.
Yeah.
she looks too soft.
Yeah.
to fit what's happening, which is like I don't know. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah. Honestly, I think a foreign actress would have been really good for this.
Maybe. I mean, I think technically she is a foreign actress.
Is
to
she?
us. I think she's Canadian.
Oh,
Yeah, she is.
might as well be American.
Semi-foreign.
Might as well be American at that point.
It's like cousin foreign.
Right. Yeah. It's the closest thing you can get. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, who's that? No.
Yeah, these are weird roles to like imagine people in.
Yeah, for real.
Like, it's like I'm not getting faces or anything like. Where it's like,
Who's the girl that plays April Ludgate on Parks and Rec?
Oh man, I should know her name. Why do I not know her name?
Do you think she has the range?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because she's like, I don't know how much you've watched her in, but I've watched her in a lot of stuff where she's playing very non-April characters.
In my
she's
mind,
a,
she is not typecasted as April at all.
Aubrey Plaza.
Yeah. She's not typecast at all.
No.
Ingrid Goes West was a very
Like,
that was kind of in the same vein as like Jack Black doing Bernie, or like those like really subdued but deep characters.
yeah,
Versus
I mean,
over the
like,
top deep characters.
Yeah, she's done things like she did Dirty Grandpa, where she played like a maniac. Ingrid Goes. She was Scott Pilgrim. She's basically the same character. Yeah, I'm trying to think through.
See,
She's done a lot of stuff, like very different stuff.
I'm thinking of her visually in Scott Pilgrim, where like the bad glasses throw off the symmetry of her face.
Yeah.
And she's like, she's hot, but like you can't tell.
Yeah, she plays like very different characters, but she's had like bit roles. I know she's played where she's like this very straight, like just attractive girl character.
Honestly, I just want to see her in the surgery scene where she removes the stinger.
Yeah.
In the name of science.
Yeah. And she's got a much larger filmography than I
She
realized.
has been cranking out, I think, 2 and 3 films a year.
Life After Beth. If you want to see her, it was. But like, if you want to see her range in one movie, like she goes both ends.
Yeah.
So I think she's definitely got the range.
Yeah, Cillian Murphy, Aubrey Plaza. That's a better pairing.
Yeah, it's a weird pairing.
Yeah.
But like, could probably work.
But honestly, it matches the punk rock tone.
That's
way
true.
more.
Yeah, if you go very punk rock with it, they're also the kind of people that are like, I think they both work as people who are, you're like, you were never meant to have a kid, but
Yeah.
then like
But then you had one.
you had one,
and
you're
then
making it
they get
work.
like humanized when they
Yeah.
have those little moments with as the kids growing up. I could totally see that. Yeah,
Sa-
go weird.
Did you see Safety Not Guaranteed?
That's the time travel Craigslist
Yeah.
movie, right?
Because I think that character is probably the closest thing to what you'd get
Probably.
here.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. You know what? Honestly, like we said at the beginning, there's a lot to like
yeah,
potentially in this movie.
there's a good concept here.
Yeah. Coming back around on the back end of it, though, I do think it is worth reapproach. You know what this movie really lacks? A definable tone.
Yeah,
That was the same thing that I said about Hush.
it was. Yeah, it's like a horror movie sometimes, and then like a sci-fi sometimes, and then like a drama sometimes. Yeah, it's like weird.
I think that there's no like one thing to hang your hat on except for both the leads bang the creature.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like there's no like discernible like aesthetic or tone. Like it's so gray. It's so
they grew the perfect organic sex robot.
right. Yikes. Yeah, I think
Be
I think
whatever
the,
you want it to be.
making it like a punk rock anti-government,
Yeah,
you know, kind of
cutting edge of science.
Right.
Like really lean into that.
well, and there's a precedent for it. Like the team that landed the rover on an asteroid, their lead guy was a guy that came out
Oh, yeah.
wearing like a Hawaiian
yeah.
t-shirt and sleeve tattoos.
Yeah.
Like that's where science is now.
Right.
Like cool people are learning how to express themselves
Yeah.
in those kinds of fields.
Oh yeah.
You could easily do characters like that now. Yeah, I think
And it gives a better tone too, because you start out punk rock and then you lean into like you get into that middle segment where it's like, okay, this is for the health of somebody they love, and then it dies, and then things go crazy.
Right.
And you get the overall theme or lesson then becomes like good science can go bad when the motivation is wrong. Right?
exactly.
So
Yeah, I think we say this, especially anytime you and I, it's just you and me on a podcast. The way to save your movie is to have good characters.
yeah,
You could have a really awful to fine
It's
movie, and if you have
amazing.
great characters,
it's
it's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people forget that good characters are necessary to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
You can have the best story in the world, and if your characters are bland, it's not going to come across.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I think really, really, really nailing down the arcs of these two, the way that their decisions affect each other.
yeah.
You can. At no point in this podcast have we been like, "Oh, you got to drop that sci-fi trope," or "You got to drop this predictable thing." It's like, no, sometimes that's the fun of these movies.
Yeah, you can have tropes, they're fine. Just don't be lazy when you use them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, Indiana Jones was leaning into how many 1950s
jeez.
tropes?
Yeah.
Leaning into
And
them.
the whole thing is a 1950s trope.
Yeah, exactly. But he wrote a really fun,
Yeah.
relatable.
And he leaned into it, too,
Exactly.
which is kind of like the point of like, you know what, we're there, let's just do it, and that makes it great.
The moment that this movie leans into it, it's like, both of our characters are gonna bang the creature, and it's like, I don't know.
I wasn't ready for this.
Yeah. Yeah, it should feel more impactful, I guess.
Yeah.
It should really, and if you care about your characters, those kinds of scenes do give impact. I'm
Yeah.
not saying tone it down. Keep it R-rated, man. They don't drop the F-bomb until like the last act of this movie.
Yeah,
And then there's like 4 of them.
Yeah.
And I haven't dropped the F-bomb at all in this podcast. So,
I'm very proud of you.
thank you. And this is for Patreon anyway, so who the fuck cares?
You're like, I gotta get one.
You started it. You said dick early
This is true.
in the podcast.
I'm sorry.
I
but-
got to stick my dick in it.
Yeah. So I'm typically a very clean person in the way I speak. Sometimes though, you gotta like.
For the comedy of it. The fact that this whole movie is, we made a new species. I got to stick my dick in it.
Yep. There's no other way to. Well, I could put it in a way that would be scientifically correct and very gross, and I'm not going to do that to our listeners.
No,
So.
not necessary. Yeah, let's close it here.
Yeah.
And you know what? You're already a Patreon member.
Yeah.
Because you're listening to it here, so I don't have to tell you where to go follow us. All I have to tell you is filmrescueshow@gmail.com.
Yep.
Send your pitches in. We want to watch the movies with you.
We will say this though, since you're supporting us on Patreon and you apparently like us, it helps if you share this with other people.
That's true.
Get it out there. And if you have a minute, you can go on Apple Podcasts and give us 5 stars, because that's one of the best ways for us to grow. And if
Yep.
we grow and we get more listeners, we can keep doing this. So yeah, if you help us out a little bit, you'll get a lot more content for a long time.
I know it feels disingenuous to be like, even if you didn't love this one, give us 5 stars, but we're small.
Yeah.
And that's how you...
And you're not rating this episode. You're rating the full podcast. So
Right.
if you like this podcast enough that you want to keep listening to us, give us 5 stars. Give us a little review there.
I'm going to have a psychotic breakdown if we just get like 3.5 across the board. People are like, I like them fine, but I don't like them 5 out of 5.
Oh.
That's going to destroy me. Yeah, that's I would, if you've already given us money,
which
you know
we
what I mean?
appreciate a lot,
so much. But yeah, take that extra step. Give it the 5-star rating on iTunes. That helps us get our podcast on top, and that helps you because then there's more people listening that you can talk to about.
Again, we want to do this as long as possible.
100%.
We can only do it if we can support ourselves doing it.
Right.
So.
And we want to bring you all on. So again, especially because you're listening to this on Patreon, we care about your story. You don't have to 100% believe in your pitch. You listen to the show, the whole show is us starting off with nothing and getting to the end.
We don't know what's going on.
Right. Yeah. If you just have a movie that you were like, you know what, this kind of let me down, that's all you need.
Yeah.
Stop there. Just be like, this was the movie.
Listen, everybody who has ever watched a bad movie has gone, this thing would have made this better. Just give us that thing.
Exactly.
Just that thing. And, if we like that thing enough, we'll bring you on.
You know what we should do for New Year's? We should do a show of like one thing changes the whole movie.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Just have people call in and be like, if you do this one thing, this is how, and then we just run with that and see how it affects the movie.
Yeah.
That could be super fun.
There you go. An idea that might possibly happen.
Hey, who knows? But yeah, this has been the Patreon exclusive Film Rescue Show. Thank you for listening to this and us and being a beautiful person.